to come out of executive session at 6:01.
A motion to come out of executive session.
Motion by Mandy,
Second.
second by Tate. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm assuming not. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Sorry to hold us up. Jason, do you want to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Now is the appropriate time for visitors in the audience to be recognized and to speak on items both on the agenda and of general concerns to the patrons of Green River Schools. There will be a limit of 3 minutes for an individual and 5 minutes for a group spokesperson. No speaker shall speak more than twice on any issue. The board is legally obligated to maintain confidentiality concerning district personnel, and therefore matters concerning district personnel will not be discussed. Do I have public comment?
Hi, Melissa Krell. Hello, board
Hi,
manager
Melissa.
at all. I just had a quick note on, in reference to policy CHCA, which will go through its first reading today. It states that the board will review personnel and high school student handbooks, but it doesn't say anything about the elementary or middle school. And also it doesn't specify that that these should be available in physical or online for parents to see anywhere. So we would like that in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay. We'll move on to 3.02. Presentation on the Green River High School Theater Students J Foundation film. Mr. Skinner?
Watch it first.
Perfect.
Monumental,
Interesting.
unexpected, inspired, beautiful, personal, heartfelt.
Pinedale, Wyoming, a small town surrounded by the breathtaking beauty of nature, a place where people know each other by name. But even here, in the heart of rural America, there are invisible battles that can't be seen, only felt. This is the story of J. Bob Bing, a young man whose life was tragically cut short, but whose legacy is now sparking a powerful movement to raise awareness about mental health and suicide prevention. J. Bob Bing was a son, a brother, a friend. He grew up in this small town where the community knew his name and his bright, loving spirit. But behind the smile was a struggle that no one fully understood. In 2016, Jay tragically died from suicide, a devastating loss for his family and the entire town. In the wake of his death, his family, united in grief, made a powerful decision. They would turn their pain into action. The J Foundation was born, a nonprofit organization dedicated to raising awareness about mental health, spreading the message of hope, and helping to prevent suicide in communities across Wyoming and beyond.
Adopted from South Korea, and then his parents owned the cowboy shop. So it's actually been in Pinedale for 76 years now, 77. Bob's parents started it. And if your parents have a country western apparel store, you're gonna be in there all the time. And Jay loved being in there. People always saw him, he was so excited to be in there. But specifically, Jay was always wearing cowboy boots. And his mom, you know, she would share so many different stories, but specifically, She wanted people to understand that if he had shorts on, he was in his boots. If he had sweats, they were tucked in. And sometimes at night, he'd fall asleep in his boots. And so she would take them off. But he did. He absolutely loved his cowboy boots. In March of 2016, Jason was traveling a lot, specifically 1 week for work. He spoke to Jay on Wednesday and again on Friday. Just kind of that surface level conversation. And Sunday, he woke up to a few missed calls from his dad, Mike. And when he called Mike back, he said, "Son, I don't know how to tell you this, but Jay took his life last night." A year later, went to Bob and Carolyn and said, "I'd like to start the Jay Foundation." And they said, "Great, what does that look like?" Jason said, "I don't know, I just know I need to do something."
The mission of the Jay Foundation is clear: to prevent suicide, to reduce stigma around mental health, and to create an open conversation, especially among young people.
I think it's cool. It's a cool way of being aware of mental health. When you wear them, you're like, you should think you have people to talk to.
I think wearing my J boots, it gives me that reminder that I'm not alone in a sense. I think that it kind of comes from the boot check kind of idea where it's like, remember to check in on your friends. So it also reminds me that I'm not alone in this and stuff, and it's okay to not always be okay.
And people matter, and it's important to know that you also matter too.
One of the schools in which the Jay Foundation has had an immediate impact is Green River High School.
Oftentimes, mental health isn't really a thing that gets brought up on a day-to-day basis, especially in like a high school setting. Everyone's kind of just focused on school, extracurriculars, not really like what's going on behind all that.
I think that talking about mental health makes it more known that it's okay, and known that like everybody is most likely struggling with something to do with mental health.
Every Monday we try to do a boot check and just make sure like the weekend was good for each of us and see if there's anything we could help with for this week.
I hope that it will help people to understand that though we are in different groups and we're different people, that there's still that common denominator of we all have a brain and we all have things we go through, and we need to be more understanding of that no matter who you are or no matter what group you're associated with.
The foundation works directly with high schools, raising awareness, providing resources, and supporting students who need it most. The need for this kind of work has never been greater. Suicide rates have more than doubled over the past 20 years. In the United States, 22% of high school students reported having seriously considered suicide in the past year. 10% have attempted it. Among adults ages 18 to 25, 13.6% had serious thoughts of suicide in the past year. And within college students, 36% have been diagnosed with anxiety and 30% with depression. Students face an immense amount of pressure from their peers, from their academics, from social media, from expectations they place on themselves. It's more important than ever that we provide them with the tools and resources to manage their mental health.
All too often, when a high school student dies from suicide, classmates say the same thing. I didn't know he was struggling. Then we're all left with what ifs. What if he had felt safe enough to talk? What if I had said something? What if we as a school had made it okay to say, I'm not okay?
At first, people think it's a little awkward. People think it's a little awkward because they're not used to other people caring. They think life has just become, you do your own thing, you come to school, and you go home.
That is the purpose of the boot check, to check in with each other, to ask the tough questions. And when someone says, I'm fine, it's like our parents always say, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. I know it can feel awkward to talk to your classmates about their well-being, but I would rather feel that discomfort from a conversation than feel the pain from having an empty chair at graduation because one of my classmates is no longer with us.
The J Foundation isn't just about statistics, it's about stories. It's about real people like Jay, like so many young people across the country who are struggling, but who don't always know where to turn. In high school, the weight of those struggles can often feel insurmountable. But it's in these very spaces, in classrooms, hallways, and sports fields, where intervention can be most powerful. In fact, suicide is now the second leading cause of death among U.S. college athletes following accidents. The pressures on young athletes are immense, from competition, injury, and balancing academics. Each day, over 100 men in the United States die by suicide, a rate 4 times higher than that of women. In fact, male deaths account for nearly 79% of all suicides in the country. In 2022 alone, a record high 49,500 lives were lost to suicide, more than any year before it. These numbers are staggering, but behind every statistic is a life, a family, a community. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of the crisis, but there is hope. The work of the J Foundation proves that one voice, one person, one family can spark change. The Foundation's impact has been undeniable. From school programs to public awareness campaigns, Jay's family has touched countless lives, reminding us all that mental health matters, that reaching out is a sign of strength, and that no one is ever truly alone.
Having the J Foundation and the Boot Checks Weekly is super vitally important to the culture of our school.
I think the J Foundation as a whole is important because it's adding community and multiple layers of support for kids. It's great that we have, counselors and social workers and teachers that care about the kids in school, but we only see you guys for little snippets. Your friends see you so much. They know the things about you. They can tell when you're having an off day that we might see, but they're going to be more tuned into those things to be able to see, they're acting different today. They're doing something different. They posted on social media, because we may see some of your social media, but most teachers or people in the school don't see all of that. So they're just more connected. So it adds that extra layer of connection and support for students to help them feel like they've got a resource to be able to go. And some kids have those relationships with teachers, but not all kids have those relationships with all staff. So it's more safety nets, so that if something happens, we've got multiple sets of eyes watching to make sure that we get in time, and if anything happens.
Keeping the kids connected to one another and checking in on each other at least every week to make sure that people that they love and care about are doing okay.
As we've gotten more social media and more ways to communicate, we've gotten worse at communicating. It's easy to post a status update and make things look like everything is great, and to look at someone else and see that their life is perfect because of how it looks on social media. But we're not really great at having those one-to-one conversations that go beyond, oh, how's your day? Oh, it's great. And then we just move on. It's the J Foundation and what we're doing with the boot checks is helping go beyond that and be like, okay, how's it really going?
Bringing it to the forefront with students and having them being able to reach out to each other is huge, because peer support is so important, especially at the high school age group. And I've seen that a lot more student connection and involvement with each other, and being able to talk about mental health and see how each other is doing has been really amazing to watch and see the students take charge.
You know, we wear our boots on Wednesdays as a way to just get the whole school to be involved. But if you see a kiddo wearing their boots on a different day, that can be an opportunity to be like, hey, I like your boots. How's everything going? Because now you've got it in your head of, oh, that's something that I know ties back to the J Foundation. And it just offers more opportunities to have those conversations and helps us to be more aware of each other.
Sometimes most people expect, you know, your mental health's fine, you gotta check in on other people. Now this kind of enables everyone to check on each other. Everyone checks on each other, if that makes sense. Every Wednesday we do the boot checks, and not necessarily just for seniors, but I think if the whole school started doing just boot checks, it's just like kind of a symbolization of check on one another, you know, make sure they're all right.
It kind of all added up once we got the boots and heard the story though.
Yeah.
Like at first it was just like, we're getting boots. And then it was like stand taller, be more confident and prideful for wearing the boots and having them, being yourself. We don't need the boots to check on people though. It's also, because not everybody wears the boots, but everybody needs to be checked on.
With each conversation, each outreach, the message is clear. Mental health is as important as physical health, and it's time we start treating it that way. The J Foundation is proof that out of tragedy, something powerful can emerge. The spirit of J. Bob Bing lives on in every person who chooses to listen, to speak up, and to reach out. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can save lives. If you or someone you know is struggling, help is available. Reach out. You matter. Your story isn't over.
Thank you. I am incredibly proud of the work of these kids. That's a wonderful film. We're grateful for that opportunity. A shorter 5-minute version was made and received a perfect score at our state thespian festival this year. And then this longer version was accepted to be premiered 2 weeks ago at the Casper International Film Festival. And the students had an opportunity to then do a talkback session with the audience. They were able to meet and workshop with other filmmakers from around the country in North America. That was a pretty awesome experience. So if I can quickly introduce 3 of our 4 filmmakers. We have Kira Molman, one of our seniors. We have Peyton Shiner and Braden Thompson. Rhiannon Schultz was not able to be with us this evening. If you can give them another round of applause. And in case you were wondering who that amazing narrator was for that story, it was actually Peyton. So.
Excellent.
Peyton recorded the entire narration for that story, and then we used a little AI to make him sound a little more like a Wyoming cowboy, and it turned out pretty darn good. And I also want to say that one of the most impressive things about this is that our students are excelling in the arts and doing these things, and like especially with film, and we don't even have a film class. Like this is being done on their own time. They want to learn, they're studying, they're learning, they're watching tutorials on YouTube and TikTok, and I'm able to help them out when available, and they're doing incredible work. And this film was just an amazing example, not only of the quality of work, but also I think it really shows how the J Foundation has been impacting our school. And we're really pleased to have that and to see that direct impact already this year. And they were able to capture some of that. Happy to take any questions if you have any. Otherwise, we're just grateful that you let us show that movie to you.
Yeah, thank you. And I can't imagine the hours that you guys put into making that, but it's great. And I'm sure the J Foundation also is so happy to be able to use that for their
We
marketing
hope
too,
so. We haven't heard anything from, but we're very hopeful that they might use it for something in the future. And we had at the film festival there was one individual in the audience during the talkback session that was really grilling the students pretty heavily. And I think Braden was really worried if she didn't like the movie. But afterwards, she came up and actually gave all of them her business card. She was a filmmaker from California and said, "Hey, if you're really interested in filmmaking, call me when you graduate." So students have already started some networking opportunities, and they're doing some great work. And hopefully, we might even see them, going on to work or to college or to the film industry. So
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Okay, moving on to 2.03, recognition of Fremont Motors for their donation to nutrition services for families in need. Andy Sell.
Hi, I'm Andy Sell, sales manager at Fremont Motors Rock Springs. This is Gabe Lloyd, a general manager. 3 years ago, we started the idea of every car we sell, we put a certain amount in an account to split between school district 1 and 2 to help families in need for food. So this is year 3, and we're able to donate $5,975 this year.
Oh, wow.
So and hopefully next year.
Thank you
What's that?
so much.
Yeah, sure. And then we have the check too.
We get a picture
Yeah.
up here
Yeah,
with you guys.
yeah.
Or if you guys don't mind getting together. Leah, if you want to go up there with it, because it's.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank you so much for keeping our kids in mind. Moving on to 3.04, recognition of GRHS student ACT scores. Mr. Heslop.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Superintendent Behringer, and Board of Trustees. We've done this the last couple of years. I think it's really important we continue to do this. I want to thank you for granting us time tonight to recognize academic excellence among Green River High School and their students. It's really easy to recognize students for outstanding public performances. However, what happens in the classroom is something we strive to recognize and celebrate as well. Students being recognized tonight have performed academically at what some perceive to be as the most prestigious and talked about measure of excellence, intelligence, student achievement, and college career readiness. That's the ACT test. Following students have scored among the top 20% of all students in the nation that have taken the test. Students will be presented with certificates with their ACT percentile composite scores to honor their accomplishments at the board meeting tonight. Before I call the kids up, something I also wanted to highlight. I talked to this last year a little bit, but we have a lot of new people on the board. So I wanted to inform you that we look at and try to compare ourselves to the state average, and we also try to compare ourselves to the national average. What people don't know is that the national average is comprised of a lot of schools and a lot of states that don't have all of their kids take the test. They take their best kids, their brightest kids, and they test those kids in most states. Wyoming is one of about a half a dozen that tests all of their kids, and we're among the top of those states that do so. So I think that's really good, not just for Green River, but also for the state of Wyoming and what we're trying to do to help our kids succeed at high levels. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start calling these kids up. I'm going to have you come up. I'm going to have our assistant principals hand out these certificates. And if you can wait till the end so we get everybody up here, and then we'll give them a round of applause. Becklin Sweat. Mark Hildenbrandt. Adam Robertson, Sophia Arnold, Savory English. I really did call all these parents and kids and ask them to come.
Well, some of them have.
There's things going on.
They're all involved in lots of
Yep,
things.
yep, there's things going on. Elena Birmingham. I saw this one. Noah Sanchez. And I seen Tanner Hokinson. Alexia Britton. Ethan Bundy. Ethan England. Georgia Nielsen. Phoenix Sachs. Sydney Bowen. I saw this one. Maxwell Carmen Murray. Savannah Case. JC Lynn Cornett. Caden Dodson. Cadence Evans. Aries Lemley. Elizabeth Shamer. Emma Tolman. Again, these are among some of the best and brightest according to the ACT. Thank you very much for letting us recognize these kids tonight.
Thank you. Could we have you guys come up here so we can take a picture?
Great job, you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Great job to all of those students. 3.05, recognition of student teachers. Mr. Berenger.
We have with us Heather Phillips and her student teacher, Daisha Tucker. If you guys, Mrs. Phillips will introduce us to Daisha.
Hello, Heather Phillips, second grade over at Monroe. I have Daisha Tucker with me. Excuse me. I was lucky enough to have Daisha in the spring of last year also. She did a lot of practicum hours with me, and then luckily we got placed together for the fall and the spring. So this has been honestly kind of a smooth ride. Mr. Berenger sent a questionnaire out to Mrs. Tucker, and I'm going to read some of the things that she filled out for the questionnaire. She is currently getting her BA in elementary education with an AA in early childhood development and elementary education from the University of Wyoming. Mr. Berenger asked her what motivated her to become a teacher. She is pursuing a degree in education because she says she knows the impact that a teacher can have on any student. She was lucky enough to have that experience and the impact of one amazing teacher. Everyone has that one teacher, and she knows that one caring person can change the life or the trajectory of any student. Everyone lives are different, and as an educator, you get to be that change, that connection in the classroom. For students, you motivate them, you influence them. Teachers build community amongst their students and guide them towards things that they love and their love of learning. Within a classroom, students find their people and passions. Teachers are often those people, and that video was very moving towards that and the impact educators have on students. She says, what we teach impacts our students and help them grow to love what they do. One thing she loves most about teaching is how it's always progressing. There are new ideas, methods, changes in technology, and she gets to shape the minds of small humans. An important part of student teaching for her has been the effective communication that she has in this profession. She's got to speak up in a lot of PLCs. She was an aide at our building for a long time, so she has those connections, but coming from a student teacher perspective and learning the teacher aspect of it, she's definitely says she's growing and learning and doing things that she never thought she'd have to do before. She feels extremely prepared though in a variety of scenarios because she has that background as being an aide in our building for 2 years. She also was a sub as an aide, and then she got her credentials to be a sub for classroom teachers also. I probably should have started about something about Daisha, but she is married. She grew up in Green River. She has 3 dogs, and those are her kids. Now she goes home and says, my 20 kids in my classroom, and her husband just laughs because it's true. We just take it home with us. She loves being outside, spending time with their family, working on projects. She started working in the district as an aide, grew to love it, went back to school. She actually went for
Petroleum engineering.
and then she came over to the education side. She describes herself as excited. That was her adjective. She's always trying new things, trying to make everything fun and an adventure. And I said, at least in elementary, you definitely do that. So she's in the right spot right now. So thank you for letting me present Daisha Tucker.
Thank you. We have one other, Katie Ryder, but she is coaching swim team in Rock Springs today. So I heard a couple of those names for the ACT tests, and they're competing over there too. So
Okay, thank you. 3.06 recognition of the school board.
I wasn't sure how to do this because it's last week, but I think the best way is just to go through this. But first off, I would like to thank our board members for taking time. Some of you have been on there a few years and realize there's a lot, it's a lot of time. And it's always a learning experience, but I will tell you, we have almost 500 really good employees. When I say almost 500, we don't quite have 500 employees. I'm not sure that exact number. And we have a little over 2,300 really good students. Not perfect adults, not perfect students, but it's a very good mix. And one of the things this school does very well is we get kids to cross that stage, and everybody's journey is very different. And so thank you guys for that. I'm going to read this. I wasn't sure if that's how we wanted to do this, but I will read it. The board was also recognized at the city council meeting last week during the week of National School Boards Week. But whereas the Wyoming School Boards Association has declared February 3rd through the 7th to be School Board Appreciation Week, at that time when all communities can acknowledge the contributions made by our local school board members. And whereas the Green River Board of Education is one of 48 school districts in the state of Wyoming, which sets policies and oversees operations for the public school districts. And whereas the Green River Board of Education embraces the goal of high quality education for all Wyoming public school students. And whereas Wyoming local school boards help determine the educational goals for approximately 93,000 children in Wyoming. And whereas Wyoming's local school board members receive no remuneration for their services, acts of advocates for the public schools students as they work with administrators, teachers, parents in the betterment of public education. And whereas the school boards strive to provide the resources necessary to meet the needs of all students, including those with special needs. And whereas the Board of Education provide accountability to the public, they communicate the needs of the school district to the public, and they convey the school administrators, the public's expectations for the schools. And whereas Wyoming can take pride in its schools, which rank among the nation's best in key achievement indicators, such as the National Assessment of Education Progress scores. Now therefore it be resolved that I, Superintendent Behringer, hereby recognize the services of the local school board throughout Wyoming as we join communities statewide in observing February 3rd through 7th as School Board Appreciation Week. I further urge all Wyoming citizens to work with local school boards of education and public staff to advance our children's education on this day, February 3rd, 2025. Thank you guys very much for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we have Give Me a Break. You're like on call here.
Well, I'm taking
One
bribes
after the
this time,
other.
so. Lee Grant, Expedition Academy.
All
Getting
right.
a hold of Lee. Good for her.
All right. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Do I need to amend anything? Okay, I don't have to do approval. Approve the agenda. Okay, I do need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Moved by Tom. Second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
A motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Moved by Mandy.
Second.
Okay, second, okay. By Dan, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay. District goals and leadership activities. We can hear a report on the legislative forum and reception that was held February 2nd through 3rd in Cheyenne. Tate and Mandy and I were all in attendance. Does anybody want to add? Do you want to say anything about it?
Being new to the school board, it was very informational. It was good to go and listen to some of the legislators talk and get a little more insight on these bills that are being pushed through that are going to affect our school district and possibly detrimentally few that are going to help us out. So I encourage everybody, if you're concerned about them, reach out to our legislators. I know some of them been kind of hard to get a hold of lately, but they're busy too. So reach out. If you have any concerns, reach out to myself or any of the other school board members.
Thank you, Mandy.
Yeah, it was, if you've never been, it's very interesting to go. There's a lot going through the legislature right now that's could affect our schools pretty significant. So we're keeping an eye on those. I would encourage all of you to reach out to our local legislators if you have questions, concerns, if you don't agree, if you do agree, because our voice is the one that matters. So I would encourage everyone to do that. I know after we got back, I actually did reach out to a couple of ours. So if you need help with that, phone numbers, emails, get a hold of us. I mean, I know they're kind of everywhere. You can find them, but we'll be kind of keeping an eye on that because there was a lot going on. So
Thank you. I would just agree with all of that. And I know we have a lot of people, you know, that are considered the experts that are testifying and things like that, but they'll be the first to tell you that parents, school board members, community members, that's who they're really listening to. So anybody who has an opinion, either way, if you reach out, you can help make a difference in those. Okay, moving on, for personnel 7.01 and 7.02, we have no action, so we can move on from those. Curriculum and instruction and assessment. So 8.01, presentation on nutrition services. Leah.
Madam Chair Castilian, Superintendent Behringer, Board of Trustees. Jason is going to be my Vanna White tonight. So Craig came in and volunteered me for a presentation. Thanks so much. When he asked me to do a presentation, he told me I had 20 minutes. Jason was there and he said, "No, you got 5. Hopefully I'm somewhere in the middle." Okay. So this is my nutrition services presentation.
I swear it was working.
Go to the arrow, it's on.
It's on. We're going to start at the beginning. The first school lunch program in the United States was launched in vocational schools in 1853 by the Children's Aid Society of New York. This program ran off the labor and dedication of mothers who volunteered to plan, create, and serve meals to children in need. During World War II, up to half the men rejected by draft boards failed their medical exams because of poor nutrition in childhood. Believing that access to regular, nutritious meals was a matter of national security, President Harry S. Truman signed the National School Lunch Act on June 4th, 1946. The days of mothers putting foods on trays in home kitchens are long gone. The USDA requires all nutrition services staff to be food safe certified, and they must know culinary math. They are required to have CEUs each year in 4 specific areas: communication and marketing, operations, nutrition, and administration. Show me the money. Nutrition Services is a federally funded enterprise fund. Unlike other fully funded programs, our reimbursement is based on each meal we served. There you can see the list, our reimbursement rates. That is per meal. Our district's current free and reduced percentage is sitting at 35%. To determine the cost of meals each year during the application process, the state agency completes a PLE tool, which looks at the food costs plus the cost of commodities. Meal prices are determined at the state level. So what is a reimbursable meal? A reimbursable meal is a single priced meal unit that offers all of the USDA daily required meal pattern components for each age group served in the minimum required amounts. So for lunch, we have fruits, vegetables, grains, meat alternates, and fluid milk. To be a reimbursable meal for lunch, the students have to choose 3 of those components. One of those has to be a half cup fruit or veg. For breakfast, USDA likes to change things, and instead of 3 components, it's 3 items. So for breakfast, it's a fruit veg, a grain, or a fluid milk. And so those are items. So the kids have to take 3 items versus 3 components, but they have to have a fruit or a veg for breakfast as well. All of our cashiers are placed at the end of the serving line. When students come through the lunch line with their tray, each cashier must look at the tray to make sure the student has either enough components for lunch or items for breakfast. If they are missing a component or an item, the student is told what they need and they must go back to get it. Breakfast is not required to have a protein, so it is a kind of a carb heavy meal. I think it was 2 years ago, we started implementing a protein that goes along with each breakfast that we serve. So if it's pancakes, there's egg and sausage also included. Okay, what are items? What are components? These pictures are very similar to what we have in every kitchen. This illustrates what students need to have on their tray to make a complete reimbursable meal. 3 items for breakfast, and then 3 components for lunch. Each week, the students must be offered the rainbow of veggies, which is dark green, red, orange, beans, peas, starchy, and other. I have included the meal pattern guidelines for you guys as well. Now we're going to test your knowledge. So I've told you what students have to take for a reimbursable meal. This was actually served at our schools. So by a show of hands, is 1 or 2 a reimbursable meal? Who says one? It's you guys.
Two.
You think one?
No, two.
I
think
say two.
Y'all say two? You're right. Good job. You can come be my cashiers.
It was the milk.
I'd hold up your line.
It's easy. The kids will just ask you who you are and why you're there. All right. So what's cooking? Good looking? I actually had a student ask me that one time. Menus are written and planned a year in advance. We receive commodity monies each year. Commodities are planned and ordered in January for the following school year. Commodity dollars are allocated based on participation. Some of the food items we receive through commodities are chicken nuggets, chicken patties, chicken tenders. And these are usually a breaded item, and they are a whole muscle product. We get our mandarin and our teriyaki chicken. We have our raw and, our ground beef, it's a raw product. Cheeses, we have canned fruits, vegetables, legumes, tomato sauce, and spaghetti sauce. We also receive fresh produce from the Department of Defense. And yes, it is the Department of Defense. That was something that was included during the wartime. It helps our agriculture and it helps our farmers. We use up the surplus that they have when they have produce. All right, so before we start this, Vanna White is going to help me, Jason. All right, so Jason has a tray. And he's going to give you each. Nobody's allergic to peanut butter, are you? Oh, good. Perfect. Okay, so we have a tray here. He's going to give you 2 sandwiches, a 1 and a 2. So what I would like you to do is, while I'm talking about this slide, I would like you guys to taste each one. And then I'm going to ask you questions after. All right, so School Mood is specially formulated for schools. They are lower in saturated fats, sodium, and contain no trans fats. The items are not available in grocery stores. For instance, an Uncrustable in the store is made with white bread and only a 2.04 or a 2.04 ounce product. Our K8 Uncrustables are made with whole wheat bread and a 2.6 ounce product. 0.3 ounce product. Jason, you can pass that around just so they can see the size difference.
Okay, number 3 here it is.
So number 3 is what the kids at the high school get. Food is required by the government to have the following documentation. A nutrition label lists the serving size and all nutritional information. A CN label or a product formulation statement. A CN label is voluntary. Thank you so much, sir. Is voluntary label that includes how much food product contributes to the meal pattern requirements. A product formulation statement is a document that explains how a product contributes to the USDA meals patterns for child nutrition programs. It is usually provided by manufacturers for processed products that do not have a CN label. So here's an example of a CN label. Now, it might be hard to see for the audience, but there's a rectangle box right next to the nutrition label. And in there, it says, what, and I can't read it, this is too small, sorry. So it says in here, each 2.6 ounce peanut butter and grape sandwich on wheat bread provides a 1 ounce equivalent grain and 1 equivalent meat alternate. So this documentation in my nutrition system, I have to upload these each year. They have to be reviewed. All nutritional information has to be reviewed yearly. And then this has to be uploaded to the product in the system, because when I have my AR, all of this information gets pulled. The state goes through everything that's on my menu, and they make for sure that I am qualifying all of my food products according to what the meal components require. So this is done. That's why menus are planned so early in advance. All right, so you've all sampled your sandwiches. What did you guys think? Could you tell the difference between two of them?
I couldn't.
You couldn't.
Tastes the same to me.
Yeah.
They're both delicious.
We've been here since 5.
So the number one, that was from Smith's, and that is a white product. And it does not have as much peanut butter and jelly on the inside.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But the number two, it's a whole grain. So you can't really tell by looking at them that one's a whole grain and one is not. And it meets the meal pattern guideline. So that is what our elementary students get if they choose a peanut butter and jelly. Any questions so far? We're good? Okay. I think I'm done testing you now. That was the final one, I think. So last year at conferences, we heard from USDA representatives that they would really like to see nutrition services do a lot more scratch cooking. If I had my way, I would scratch cook everything, but that requires staff. It requires a lot of people to do that. So we have started implementing scratch cooking in our district. We started, I think it was last year. This year we've included a few new things. We do a Spanish rice, a fried rice. Our taco meat is made with the raw ground beef, and then we make it from scratch. Everything we put in it is gluten-free. It is, there's no gluten in the products. There's no soy in the products. Same with the spaghetti meat, lasagna. My central kitchen ladies make, how many pans? 36 pans for one go to feed the district of lasagna. They hand layer those. They cook the spaghetti sauce, the whole 9 yards. Breakfast burritos, fruit crisps, cakes, banana, pumpkin, and applesauce bars. And then we had our Riverton corn. So in October, we partnered with Mrs. Tolman and her FFA students. We shucked 1,300 ears of corn. The corn was purchased from 1890 farms in Riverton. We served this to the students along with a pulled pork sandwich. This was for the Crunch Off, which Wyoming won for the first time. We took the title from Nebraska this year. So we're super excited about that. Food changes that we're going to see next year. We are going to have all Wyoming raised beef patties. They will be purchased from Frank's Butcher Shop up in Riverton. It's a Wyoming raised beef, and we purchased 2 charbroilers. So all the patties will be grilled. There'll be a grilled patty coming off. The other thing is all of my chicken nuggets, chicken tenders, and patties this year are nothing but a whole muscle product. So I will have one item that is a compressed chicken product, and that's my hot and spicy, but they don't make one yet that's a whole muscle. When they do, we'll get it. All right, so we do have some school meal changes coming down the timeline. Next year, what we're going to see, I think, that we're going to start implementing is the added sugars. USDA really would like added sugars to be eliminated for kids, especially in the morning. So all of our sugars, yogurt, and milk will have a reduced added sugar to them. And I did some checking today. All of our yogurt and the majority of our cereals, I think I have 2 that I only have 2 that don't meet. So it won't be a huge change for the students, but we will be seeing more reduced sugars going forward. Budget and subsidy. To keep the subsidy and student meal prices low, we have other streams of revenue. Besides the meal reimbursements we receive monthly. However, our main focus is always meals and participation. Our streams of revenue are catering, a la carte items, and then of course, teachers buying classroom snacks for BITOP or just for their kiddos, and then using food service for classroom parties. Things that can cause that subsidy to go up is, of course, wage and benefit increases. Food cost, school food has increased by 296% since April of 2022. outside food being brought into schools during meal service and classroom parties, non-compliant food items being sold or handed out free during meal service. Feeding people is my passion. Thank you for allowing me to share my passion with our kids. Any questions? Sorry.
Thank you, Leah. You do a great job, and that's a lot of things to juggle to make sure that you're meeting all the standards. So thank you for all your hard work.
No questions? No more tests, please.
Okay, do you say? Is
Can I keep this one?
that the big one? Yes, you can.
You're going to get invited back if you keep feeding us.
I can't wait for the next one. Alec.
All right, we're going to move to hear presentation and consider approval of K through 8 ELA curriculum and math curriculum. Alan Demery and Anne Marie Covey.
Make sure we get this to work here. Okay. All right, Madam Chair, Superintendent Behringer, and Board of Trustees. We're here tonight, Mrs. Covey and I, to ask for your consideration and the adoption of a new kindergarten through 8th grade language arts curriculum resource, as well as a kindergarten through 8th grade mathematics resource. Because many of you are new to the board, and because this is a very important decision, as well as a large ticket item with a large price tag, we're going to spend a few minutes kind of giving you some additional content and background information as to how we've gotten here, the process that we've taken to arrive at this decision, as well as I invite you to ask any questions throughout our short presentation here, because it is an important decision, and we want to make sure we get this decision right. So when we hear the word curriculum, many of us have different ideas that come to mind. Some folks might think that's the resource or the books that our teachers are using when they're teaching the content to our students. Some might think of the state standards that we're needing to address. Folks might think it's a proficiency scale. And so again, we want to try to provide some clarity, and because some of you are new, we want to try to help explain to you folks, as well as our district and our parents and our stakeholders, kind of the definition of what a guaranteed and viable curriculum stands for. And so you'll see three main components there on the top. The first one is our Wyoming priority standards. That is what the State Board of Education in Wyoming has determined that our students here in Wyoming need to know in regards to our standards. The proficiency scales are documents that we have spent the last several years developing, identifying how do we know, and how do teachers and students and parents know when our students have mastered the skills to be able to meet those state standards. The roadmap is a document that our district has created that takes the priority standards, aligns them with the proficiency scales, and then aligns them to the YTOP blueprint to ensure that our kids are being taught the material that they need to know to, one, meet those state standards, meet them to mastery, as well as be able to know the content that they're going to be assessed on and continue that proficiency in those YTOP assessments. So when we think of guaranteed and viable curriculum, it's taking those three items together. It's not necessarily the tool that we're using to get there. That's what we're going to adopt tonight, is the resource of what our teachers can use to be able to meet those three things, but it's not the other way around. What does that mean? It means that we're not just going to go page by page in these books, hoping that we cover the state standards, hoping that we get our kids to mastery and that we get them the information they need to be proficient on the YTOP. It's the other way around. We're going to use the tool, and throughout the next year and forward, to align it to making sure that we're taking whatever that tool has, because it's a huge resource. They're built to make sure that they're covering all standards in every state, but to align it to make sure that our students here in our district are using that tool to make sure we're getting them the Wyoming priority standards to mastery, along to, again, being prepared for the YTOP. Does that make sense? Hopefully that's clear. All right, so just to give you some background, here are the dates of our last curriculum adoptions. So for English language arts, You can see that it was in 2014-15 when we adopted the Houghton Mifflin collections and journeys for our kindergarten through 8th grade. In 1920, the district purchased the Fontenay and Pennell curriculum resources for each of our elementary schools and some for the middle school, but that was just purchased as a tool. The last adoption for English language arts was back about 10 years ago. Same for mathematics. Our last adoption was in 15-16, where we adopted the Envisions Common Core for K-5 and the Go Math for 6 through 8. So obviously in that 10-year span, there's been some development with technology. There's been development with the science of reading, lots of different things that we've got to kind of catch up with and make sure we're giving our teachers the most updated tools so that they can reach all of our students.
Here's a little bit about the timeline when we began this work. Thinking back to the spring, Dr. Demaray and I, we sent out a survey kind of assessing the needs. What do the staff need? And what are the tools? And so we knew the K-8 math and K-8 English language arts were something that rose to the top. And we'll explain a little bit more about what those surveys explicitly said. So then in September, we assembled a committee that encompassed probably anywhere from 25 to 30 members of our staff covering the K-8 spectrum from a variety of schools and a variety of backgrounds, from classroom teachers, support services, our literacy specialists, special ed, so that we had a well-rounded committee to support this work. In October, we came together, both math and ELA, they came together separately. And we spent time kind of reviewing what is our vision and how are we going to create our guiding principles to find a tool that's going to support the district's work. And come November, December, after we had spent time creating our guiding principles, we began to have some vendors come in, different publishers, and we spent time exploring what those tools looked like, as well as hearing from those vendors as far as presenting their tool and basically telling us why we needed to purchase theirs. But we utilized a rubric and our guiding principles to help us make those decisions. So in January, we spent time with the committee selecting a tool we felt would cover those guiding principles and meet the needs that we had presented. Now, February, which is where we are right now, our timeline was to come to the board and seek approval for purchasing a K-8 ELA as well as a math set of materials. And our goal from here, depending on the outcome of tonight, is looking forward to that March and April, beginning to order these materials and begin to get them coming in to our staff, as well as planning professional development, which we feel is key. And then fall of 2025 would be implementing a K-8 English language arts curriculum, a 6-8 math curriculum, and we are also exploring, we do have some of our elementary teachers who also want to take on the math. It is not by any means something we are expecting because learning 2 new tools and taking that in can be a lot, but we have had some teachers express some interest in both of those as well. So a little bit about this process. I explained that in the spring we did send out a survey, and we really found out there are so many different materials and resources that staff are using to meet these Wyoming state standards, and they were really spending an immense amount of time going out and finding those tools that would help meet those needs in their classrooms. We also identified with the staff those gaps and the strengths of those as well. So then on September 25th for math and the 26th for ELA, that's when we really spent some time grounding ourselves in this work and why do materials matter for our students. We talked about our instructional vision. Those guiding principles that I have used is what should teaching and learning look like in our classrooms? And we had some great discussion around that. And what should students experience on a daily basis in our ELA and our math classrooms, as well as kind of our overall goals for learning. On October 31st, we again reviewed those guiding principles. We reviewed and edited that rubric that we were going to use as a tool to help us make those decisions and discuss questions we wanted to ask those vendors. And we also spent time just reviewing and looking through the materials that had been sent to us. And if any of you were here, you may have seen them back here in the fishbowl, all laid out for many months, and staff came and spent time looking through those as well. Continuing with our process on December 2nd and then December 4th, we invited in our vendors to present. So we spent a whole day listening to vendors talk about their tools, their resources, and how that's going to be impactful for us. We had great discussion and we took time evaluating those materials as well. On December 10th, again, another survey just went out to our ELA and our math committees of giving some time to process between the 2nd and the 10th, but needed to hear their feedback and their thoughts and their questions, the strengths, the weaknesses to all of those vendors that had presented their materials. So again, just seeking some more input from the staff. On January 20th, we met again with the committees and had some great discussions about what tool are we going to choose? Or do we need to go back out and look some more? Where do we need to go with this? So decisions have been made and we'll share what those look like here in just a moment, but the teams did come together and they did choose a tool they felt at this point would meet the needs of our K-8 English Language Arts as well as our K-8 math. And then here we are tonight at the board meeting. So here are a few of the these are the vendors and the materials that our teachers had opportunities to look through and evaluate. The first one was Mifflin Harcourt for math and ELA, and there in parentheses are the names of those specific. Into math is the elementary, and the LMS as well, the middle school. Into reading is for the elementary, and into literature is for our 6-8. Then we looked at Savas for math and reading as well. Envision is the math component for K-8. My Perspectives was the elementary, and My View Literacy was that for the middle school. We also heard presentations from Great Mind for math, centered around, it was called Eureka Math Squared, as well as Curriculum and Associates for both our math and our English Language Arts as well.
All right, so one thing to really, I think, define as well is we are looking at for next year implementing that K through 8 English Language Arts, and then we wanted to select a K through 8 math curriculum, even though we're not implementing it, in all buildings, all classrooms at the elementary level. We felt like it was important for that decision to be made collectively, kindergarten through 8th grade, versus just having our middle school select a program and then potentially not having that be our program for elementary. So in trying to be consistent across our district, we felt like it was important for all of those folks to be involved. And at the beginning, we also invited our high school folks, when we were developing some of that original feedback, to really tell us what are the skills you want those kids to know when they get to the high school. And that's where we really had some really healthy discussion. We do want to publicly thank our committees. It's a lot of time. It's also a lot of healthy discourse that happens in these conversations. Our teachers are passionate about the resources that they use. And so when you're introducing new resources that they're potentially going to have to use, they can definitely have their own feelings about that. Some of them are very comfortable with the current resources that they're using. Some of them are ready for something different. But we do appreciate that they all came with an open mind, and then they all left with a consensus in that this is what our district needs to move forward with. Again, this is a foundation resource. Also, teachers are still going to have the ability to supplement where they see needed to respond to student learning. And so there's a lot of other things that teachers bring, that autonomy that they bring to their classroom and to the art of teaching, that we don't want to take away. But we do need a foundation across all of our schools, because it shouldn't matter what school or what teacher your child has in our district. They should all still be exposed to the same content, again, to meeting those state standards, to mastery, to again, hopefully be successful as they have been on our YTOP assessment. So again, just a public thank you to those committee members. All right, so here are these selections that the committees have come together or that our ELA and our math folks have selected. HMH is Houghton Mifflin and Harcourt. K5 is into reading. 6 through 8 is into literature. So for ELA, that's the one that they chose. I think a nice part is as well is that the math folks selected Houghton Mifflin Harcourt as well for Into Math, which helps with software. It helps with pricing. It helps with a lot of things. We had told them initially that it didn't, we weren't looking necessarily at the dollar signs. We wanted to make sure we got the resource that our teachers felt was the best resource for them to meet those standards. And so it just worked out that both committees really felt that these publishers were the ones that our students would benefit from.
So with that, what is included? We have spent the past few weeks spending time with our vendor, with HMH, and really kind of working down kind of what are we getting with this? So all the teachers' editions are included, and we are looking at a 5-year one-time purchase. So in 5 years, this price includes all of our online curriculum, both student and teacher resources. It also includes all the student consumables, those workbooks. And also each spring, we don't get them all delivered for 5 years in one shot, thank goodness. But each spring we would update those numbers because, as you know, grade levels change in numbers. And so we would make those adjustments each spring, as well as supplementary programs. We know over the past 10 years, the electronic aspect and the online piece has changed tremendously. And HMH provides things called Waggle, Amira, and Writable. Now, Waggle is the intervention aspect for our students for both ELA and math. And Amira is kind of a screening tool, an assessment aspect, helps teachers understand a little bit more about their oral reading fluency or other things that are impacting students and maybe why they aren't succeeding. And then Writable, just like it sounds, it does help with the writing process. And these also provide ELL supports for our students that are ELs as well. We also know no matter what tool we choose, and we understand this, that professional development is the key for our teachers growing. And they need to, first of all, understand how to use the tools and what they bring. And if we don't provide that, we will just be skimming the surface for what these tools offer. So this also includes 2 years of professional development that is both in person as well as online, as well as on-demand professional development for teams. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. So here's a little more detail centered around that. And I'm just going to highlight a few of those pieces. And in addition, I believe Dr. Demery had sent out to you earlier today, as these links didn't work the way in which we needed them to, but you will see a complete breakdown, each grade level and how these tools are all embedded in that. A few of the highlights centered around the Into Reading, as you can see, all of the consumable aspects that come with that, as well as the online pieces, are all included in that 5-year component, a subscription, I guess you could call it. And the same thing with the Into Literature. That is for our 6-8 programs as well. And a couple of highlights here. The teachers really were excited about some of those online pieces to really help them understand their students' learning and being able to differentiate within that component as well. So they're excited about learning more about the online components here. And then the Into Math, the same aspect here, all of the 5-year subscription and the consumables that also come with that. And ranges anything from our grammar to writing, reading, comprehension, and then of course within the math piece, all the manipulatives. We know one thing about math, it is hands-on, and we really are working to make sure those teachers have those tools to teach that in that classroom. So they will be getting lots of many different manipulatives to help teach those standards and ensure kids have some concrete understanding of those skills as well. The professional development, a couple highlights here. We're going to be spending in-person days, and it's going to be divided from K2, the 3-5, and the 6-8. So they're really going to narrow that down to those specific grade levels to have more deeper conversation, because what kindergarten needs for reading is going to look a little different than what 7th grade needs for reading. And we want to be able to meet those needs and have those conversations. So there will be a full day of just getting started, of taking time within that tool with an in-person trainer coming on site before school starts. And then, of course, all of the online components, we will be having 2-hour shots of those done through a virtual setting. Another component we'll also have is some on-site, in-person coaching, training, and we'll kind of determine what that looks like by the needs of our teachers as we get going with this. One grade level might need something, or a certain school may need something, so we're going to be able to tailor that based on those needs. Another component here is called leader success, when we think about as administration or instructional facilitators, of giving them some training about when you're in classrooms, how do you help and support teachers who are implementing this? We also are going to have something called Coachly, and this is a one-on-one, or actually we're going to be using it within our PLCs, as you hear us talk a lot about PLCs and the criticalness that that has in our district. So Coachly is something, let's say my 3rd grade PLC or my 8th grade PLC may have some questions about, tell me a little more about Waggle. I'm not quite understanding that. They can schedule a 30-minute with a coach centered around that, specific to their PLC needs, though it's unlimited throughout the course of the year. So I think that is something we're excited to tap into and allow them to personalize that. And then they also have something called personal pathways, which are just different videos of lessons, as well as planning and some differentiation and the assessment component as well. So again, we know professional development is the key to helping our teachers truly understand this so they can implement this in their classroom and have a great success with our students. So the next 2 years we'll definitely be spending focusing around that professional development with these 2 tools. Another piece we're seeing a lot of research centered around, and I know as we work within the science of reading, is that handwriting component. And we all have our beliefs about the handwriting piece and the cursive component and what does that look like. And we are really seeing the research coming out about the connection between handwriting and what that does for students in reading and developing their reading. And there is a connection between the decoding and the encoding piece of that. We have a couple of different handwriting pieces going on currently in the district. So we are looking at bringing that to a consistent piece for our K-5 and just done in small shots of 15 minutes to support our students with that. And I know our OTs, our occupational therapists, will be thrilled to have this happening in the classrooms as well.
All right. So before we get to there, because that's a big number, couple things to remind everyone of. One is we are looking at 2 separate content areas. And so while that number is going to be huge, you have to look at it as we're addressing both ELA as well as math. So that's covering a bulk of our content areas in terms of our elementary and middle school content. Also, it's for 5 years. And so you have to look at it that each year we're not going to have to be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to look for, those workbooks and those, consumables that students go through. Yet licenses each year for software, which we know, being new in this department, we're finding out there's a lot of licenses that get sent out every year and need to be renewed. In addition to that is, if you recall, some of you may know that the legislature a few years ago allowed school districts to increase their reserves. During COVID, we received a lot of grant funding, ESSER funds and those types of funds to support districts through the pandemic that allowed the district to save additional funds. Now that timeline in terms of when that's going to have to go back down to a lower percentage is coming up on us in a few years. And so in an effort to start working our way back down to what the legislature expects our savings to be in our reserve funds, this is a great opportunity to use those reserve funds as a one-time purchase without that, ongoing expense like staffing would be. So that's where we're looking at for in terms of funding is a one-time shot. That's where we want to try to get that 5 years in there, get all the supplies that we need, all the resources, and then we're set for 5 years. But so when you're going to see that large number, those are some things I want you to consider is one, it's the reserve funds. It's not the general fund that we use, annually for our expenses. And second, it is a 5-year commitment that we're paying at a one-time upfront cost. So with that, we are asking to for the board to approve 1.5, not to exceed 1.5 million. The reason we say not to exceed is because we still have some shipping costs that have to come in. We're around 1.3 right now. That's where the bid is coming from. And you can see it in that link. When you go through, you can see it. It's broken down to what each book cost, all the way down to several dollars. But this would cover both the math and the ELA, as well as the Zane Bloser for the handwriting component. And so we are asking for your consideration to move forward with both of these adoptions. We will stand for questions.
Can I get asked then? Okay, I didn't know if we did. Well, I saw in here, 2-year professional development plan. One thing that was really impressive to me, because as a former teacher, you get all that in service at the very beginning of the year, and then it's like you start, but then questions. So I really like that. But then when I read right here, it says 2 years only. So how do you deal with the new teachers that might miss that 2-year
Sure.
part?
So the 2 years is, it's quite an intensive plan in terms of providing that professional development. As we go forward into year 3, year 4, we can always contract with them to come in and provide professional development like we do now with some of our staff. It's just that in looking at this will hopefully encompass the majority of our staff. Thankfully, in the last several years, we haven't had a lot of turnover in teachers at the elementary level. But now if we were to find that we had a group that would come in, we can also utilize some of our internal folks too. Our instructional facilitators have been wonderful resources, and they're great to supporting some of those new staff. But it could look different, right? Because if we're not looking at a large number of teachers and only a specific few, we may be able to do it online. We may not have to bring somebody in. It might be a combination of working with our staff, our instructional coaches, as well as an online PD. The Coachly is something that we can explore if that's a need that keeps going, but we didn't want to commit to that further than 2 years because it's fairly expensive. But that's the one-on-one, or one-on-two with the PLC that's on demand. We're really excited about that, and I think our teams would really benefit from that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
I don't have a question, just a bit of support. First of all, we haven't adopted this curriculum in 10 years. So this has been a long span, and we also have an accreditation coming up in a year. Is that correct?
Correct.
So this is a key component that goes into that accreditation process. So it sounds like a lot of money, but it's necessary. Just through history, it's not a lot of money. When you look at 2 programs across a 10-year period, we haven't adopted this. We get 5 years. I think it's a good deal.
Well, and I would say, a year ago when we started talking about this, I tried to be an optimist, but I was like, there's no way we're going to get groups of teachers to agree on 2 different curriculums in 1 year. And good job leading that, but there were some really good conversations, and we had some really strong-willed people that came together to come up with this in really a short amount of time. So, I mean, it often takes years. So good job.
Yeah.
I know the supplemental curriculum. I was glad that's not just for ELL, it's for everyone, right?
Correct.
And then what are we doing with the special ed accommodations?
Yeah, great question. What we have found in the last couple years is as we have really identified the skills that our kids need to know in terms of meeting those priority standards, is that now that we've been really prescriptive for all of our students in regards to reading and math, we're able to then have our special education staff be able to address just those specific skills using a variety of resources, but not necessarily completely having a different program that then is really difficult for those students to return to the classroom. And so it's really been nice to see our staff in those PLCs be able to identify, hey, these are the skills that this group of kids needs. So you're going to go work on those maybe for 10, 15 minutes or during our interventions, and then they can return to that large group general education setting. Obviously, we've pushed in services quite heavily. Now we do have a few programs, specific programs, for small student populations, and they do utilize some different programs. But as we've pushed in our services and our kids are spending more time in our general education setting, you're seeing our scores also go up. Those kids are able to be exposed to all of that instruction. They're also being around their peers. I think that that's another plus for that. And so we're not looking at a separate program where kids go down the hall, nobody really knows what's happening down there. We're wanting our kids to be able to have that support within the class. And then those intervention pieces come into play where we can address those skill deficits. So hopefully that answers that question. Yeah.
I'm gonna hop in for a second too on that. And also within that tool, there are different, we know teachers have a variety of different experiences and levels when they come in, a first-year teacher versus a 10-year teacher, and their ability to intervene. So the tool does provide some of those. When your student is experiencing this or you're showing this in assessment, here's some ways in which you can now address that, both for enrichment as well as intervention. And also not only does the books provide those aspects, but also some of those online pieces can differentiate for those students as well.
One more question, and that is, can I access the handwriting?
No, I think I can make some arrangements for some OT services. Yeah.
It's never too late, right?
I did want to dovetail on something that Tom had mentioned, and is that we did survey the staff last year, and we were quite surprised, I think, that when we surveyed all teachers in terms of those grade levels, that they were wanting a new tool for both ELA and math. I think that surprised me. It may have surprised Anne Marie as well. But so I think that not only has it been 10 years, I think our teachers are also saying, the most of them, some of them are not, but the majority of them are saying we are ready for something different. And I know the math, we had looked at one vendor that is the same company that we currently have. And while some teachers really felt passionate about that, and we value that, there was also a large group of folks that said, look, we have had this. And if we're wanting something different, why would we go back to that vendor? And so again, some really healthy discourse, but we're wanting to listen to our staff. We talk about that all the time, right? We've got to listen to our teachers and try to support them. We feel like this move will do that. So, but yeah, any other questions?
No, not a question. I want to support this in that being a district-wide adoption, if your child is in third grade mathematics at Washington, and for whatever reason they moved to Truman, they're in the same setting, you know where they're at, same tool, everything's the same.
Well, they had
It's
sixth
an
grade.
advantage. Yeah.
At Lincoln, they all come together, so it's important.
Yeah, that was
I think
important
that-
as well as for those students when they get to the middle school, that they have similar vocabulary, similar exposure to content, so that those middle school teachers can take all those kids, regardless of what school they came from, which elementary school, makes it a lot easier for them. There's not as many gaps or things just because one building maybe have used one resource versus another. But for sure, yeah.
I also like the fact that you still allowed for other supplement, because kids, even if they're at two different, or even though you want them to be the same, we know they're not. Generally, yes, but there's always those exceptions that need a little bit of this different material. So I'm glad there's opportunity for that.
Thank you. And I think a benefit to our staff too, as they maybe move up grade levels or downgrade levels or to different buildings, familiar with the curriculum already. So I think it'll be a benefit. Any other comments or questions? Okay, can I get a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to motion, we approve ELA and math curriculums through Houghton Mifflin Hardcourt and Zane Blaser for grades K-8, not to exceed 1.5 million using reserve funds.
And I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Tom, second by Michelle. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. Okay, we'll move forward to bid request items. 9.01, consider approval of RFP results for food commodities. Leah.
Madam Chair Castilian, Superintendent Behringer, Board of Trustees. As part of the Western Wyoming Food Co-op, we are seeking your approval to award our processed commodities to Foster Farms, Tyson and Yang's for chicken, JTM for pork, and Integrated Foods for beef. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve?
A motion to approve.
Moved by Mandy,
I second.
second by Tommy. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Leah. 9.02, consider approval of bid results for bid for the district camera replacements. Doug Hamel.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board. If you remember last month, we put these 3 projects out to bid. We had results come in. Last Thursday, we had a capital facilities meeting. These are the results. No sugar added.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I thought that was funny.
We're motion to approve conversion. Is that correct? Is that what you're recommending?
So that is recommendation. There are 2 bids. Pine Cove actually presented a whole new system, and conversion is a bid what we asked for.
Okay, all right. So I'll motion to approve convergent to replace the district cameras not to exceed 225,000. Is that correct, Doug?
It is correct.
Moved by Tom,
I'll second.
second by Mandy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 2.03, consider approval of bid results for the Lincoln Middle School boiler burner replacement.
Yep. Again, we received 1 bid, combustion control. Bid came in at 101. We had some conversations and got it down to 91. That's what it is.
How many bidders did you send this to, Mr. Hamel?
So
On average?
I have a recommendation for a bidder. This was it. Business department advertises it in the papers.
Okay.
It goes out to statewide, out of state, interstate. There's a I'm misplacing the word, but there's a place that we can send it and it goes out to anybody that's
Wants to
available.
bid.
Yep.
Okay.
Available to bid.
Can I get a motion?
A motion to approve the Lincoln boiler burner upgrade project for $91,000.
Moved by Tom,
I second.
second by Tommy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 9.04, consider approval of bid results for the GRHS back doors and pad.
Yep. Again, that was the only bidder.
Can I get a motion?
Go ahead, man.
I'll motion to approve the main level backdoor replacement project for $80,000.
Second.
Moved by Tate, second by Tom. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And these will all be installed this summer. Yep.
Perfect. We are going to table 10.01, consider approval of the GRHS theater monetary request. Moving on, we don't have to make an action motion for that. Okay. 10.02, consider approval of the revision to policy CB, school superintendent, first reading, Dr. Foos.
Thank you, Madam Chair Castillion, Superintendent Berenger, trustees. We're moving along with our policy audit. We are now in the Cs for your consideration on a first reading. So as you can see before you, the majority of these are simple rewrites, wordsmithing, and not a lot of substance change. So for your consideration, the school superintendent CB on the first reading.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Dr. Foos? If a board member, a community member has a suggestion that they'd like to bring forward, where do they take it? I mean, do they email you or do they, I mean, how does that process work? Because I had somebody ask me.
Yes, various platforms can email the board.
Super 8 representatives can then take it to Super 8. They can also email Mary or I. They can come to public comments like Mrs. Crowell tonight, and we will log those comments and suggestions and bring them forward at the next Super 8, moving into the second reading, and most likely make the adjustments, or not. If they're appropriate, we'll make the adjustments. So many platforms.
I'd motion to approve CB revised on first reading.
I'll second.
Moved by Tom, second by Mandy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.03, consider approval of the revision to policy CBA, Superintendent of Schools, first reading.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, you can see this is basically a job description of qualifications for the superintendent. It's a rework. It's really pretty simple, not a lot of change.
I'll motion to approve CBA.
Moved by Mandy,
Second.
second by Dan. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.04, consider approval of the revision to policy CBG, evaluation of the superintendent, first reading.
This policy just puts in the systems for the evaluation. Madam Chair, you probably remember a few years back, the board vetted a couple of evaluation tools provided to us by the state. The board selected one of those tools. The board is utilizing still that same tool at this time. And again, just an update to the current policy.
Can I get a motion?
I move to approve policy CBG in its first reading.
Moved by Tommy,
Second.
second by Tate. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.05, consider approval of the revision to policy CCB, line and staff relations, first reading.
Again, this policy is also available to the public through the board docs, the SW2 website, if people viewing want to go actually look at the policies before it gets to the third reading. But this one talks about school personnel, the lines of responsibility and authority of the superintendent, and how they are responsible for managing the school district.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve CCB.
Moved by Dan,
I'll second.
second by Mandy. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.06, consider approval of the revision to policy CF, school building administration, first reading.
Within the limits of the law, the board, regulations, and instructions from the superintendent and assistants. So again, defining the authority of the board to the superintendent down through the school district.
Thank you.
I'll motion to approve CF.
Moved by Mandy,
Second.
second by Tate. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.07, consider approval of the revision to policy CHCA, approval of handbooks and directives, first reading.
Thank you. And Mrs. Crowell, we did note your suggestions. They are appropriate. Thank you. We'll get those added in there for the second reading. So consider approval for the first reading for now.
I'll motion to approve policy CHCA.
Moved by Tom,
I'll second.
second by Michelle. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.08, consider approval of new policy CA, administration goals, priority objectives, first reading.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to recognize Super 8, Christy, your team. I don't see her tonight. But this is not a revision of an existing policy. This is a recommended optional new policy to the district that passed through Super 8 and was considered. We did take a look at quite a few brand new policies to the district, and this was one of the ones that Super 8 liked and believed that the district's already doing, but in a way brings policy to the practice.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve policy CA.
Moved by Tate,
Second.
second by Dan. And I would just add to that, there were a lot of different policies we passed up. So we tried to just select what is necessary, not just add to the policies. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.09, consider approval of the new policy CBD superintendent's contract, first reading.
Again, Madam Chair, and for the patrons, guidance for the board of directors to follow moving forward systematically with the superintendent contract, and a policy that the district hasn't had up until this point, but Super 8 felt was pertinent to move forward with.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion to approve policy CBD.
Moved by Mandy,
Second.
second by Tate. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 10.10, consider approval of the new policy CBJ, superintendent's termination of employment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciated the discussion around this policy. The first paragraph addresses the expiration of a contract. So not only for the superintendent, but administrators, when a contract expires, there's really no, what I would say, property right or need on an expiring contract. It's expiring. The board chooses not to renew that contract. But the second paragraph there talks about the potential termination of a contract before its end and the processes and steps that would need to be followed.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve policy CBJ.
Moved by Tommy,
Second.
second by Dan. Any discussion?
What's the definition of good cause?
I think good cause is one of those things, stealing the things that become very clear that a contract may need to be terminated.
Okay, so we don't need it. It would be determined by the board.
Yeah, and the board's attorney.
Yeah.
Yes, there's
You would work
Legal.
with the attorney and
there
you
is
guys would.
there is a
yeah.
legal definition to that,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's broad. I don't think it's one certain thing, but it does give the board that chance if there's something not good happening, illegal, immoral, then they can look at
Okay.
approach that.
I wasn't looking for a reason to fire him. I just wanted to know.
Well, and I think we
Thanks for the
discussed it.
question, trustee.
But I think we also discussed that it also protects the superintendent too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there may be an appropriate time where the contract has to be terminated. And when the district engages in a contract with the employee, that contract is binding until the end of the contract. And if someone wants to breach that contract, you would have to have good cause to do so.
Thank you. Can I get a motion? Oh, we already did. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 10.11. Consider approval of new policy CFB, evaluation of administrators other than superintendent, first reading.
And just guidance for the acting superintendent to have those evaluations complete to the administrators throughout the system, bring some clarity to that process moving forward. Again, a new policy in the system, but Super 8 felt it was appropriate and needed at this time.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion to approve policy CFB on first reading.
Moved by Tom,
Second.
second by Tate. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go to superintendent and board comments. Let's start with Tate.
First off, thanks everybody for being here tonight. Long meeting, but a lot of very informational things. I think the J Foundation tonight was kind of fitting with the tragedy that happened in a small community, Byron, Wyoming, yesterday. Mental health is a very prominent thing in communities in Wyoming right now. The suicide rate in Wyoming is among the top in the nation. I think it was a great presentation. I encourage everybody to check on your peers, teachers. I hope that we can get that video that they put out in all the schools.
for all the kids. Thanks everybody that reached out over School Board Appreciation Week, and thanks for dinner.
All right.
Tom.
All right, well, I'll tag team on the J Foundation. I think it's important. Those kids that put that together did a great job. Pardon me. All those presented tonight, Lee, Alan, Henry, you guys did a great job. Appreciate it. For those that didn't read it, but our cheer team did it again. So I'm sure they'll be here next month to celebrate that, but that was a great job. Tag teaming on Darren, I think it's important to understand that every junior in Wyoming has to take the ACT. Every single one. In most other states, that does not happen. Only the kids who have to take the ACT to get into college take the ACT, and that's generally the kids who score the highest. But if you compare it apples to apples, what Darren and his staff has been able to do, when you take every single student has to take it, our scores are phenomenal. Great job. And lastly, I think we need to keep a close eye on what's going on in Cheyenne. There's legislation down there that is going to directly impact school districts. Our rec board and BOCES are directly funded by property taxes. And sometimes we don't realize what we have until it's gone. But if you take a look around at what BOCES does, if you go to the theater in Rock Springs, go to any program, theatrical, anywhere, all the programs we fund, I'm on that board, and I'm telling you, we're making plans on what programs we're going to have to cut because that tax source is going away. At least half of it. And if there's not a supplement to that, we're going to be cutting programs at both BOCES and from the rec board. I encourage you to call your legislators because it's important business and it's going to affect us. So.
Thank you. Michelle?
I just have to say that every time I come here, I get even more proud to be part of this district. How exceptional the movie that we watched tonight, the presentations, Leah, wonderful job, and the curriculum. I just and Doug, just the thoroughness of what I see. I'm very proud to be part of it, and but I do and to reach out and touch people like to check on one another, and it's really important. And also reach out to your legislature, find out what bills. And I know some of the bills that I asked about when I talked to someone who hadn't even met to the floor. They said that wasn't even going to be part of it. So, let's just reach out, find out what's going on.
Thank you. Tommy?
Yeah, building on the J Foundation. I mean, what a noble cause. I think we all need to take a moment and be mindful to look out for each other and take care of each other. It was great to see the recognition for academic excellence. Great job, Mr. Haslip, to you and your staff. Nutrition Services, thanks for what you do. And certainly we can see the diligence and care that you all take.
Mandy?
Well, I think they said everything. I do want to, I know the wrestling teams are getting geared up for state, so hopefully we can see another state title come home. I want to tell Mary Flom thank you for what she does. She actually got a compliment in Cheyenne from WSBA that she is one of the top administrators in their opinion. So Mary, thank you. You handle a lot and you keep us lined out. So I appreciate it.
Dan?
Yeah, everything's basically being said. I like going last. Let's keep this up. Thanks everybody for showing up.
All right. I'll go ahead and go. I would just agree with everybody. J Foundation does amazing things, and it's fun to see that it's impacting our high school. On top of cheer and dance, Sweetwater County swept the whole cheer and dance in first place. So that's a great job to our county. I attended the WSBA board meeting and that went well. It's always good to talk to other districts and see what's going on in their communities, good, bad, and get other ideas. And also always makes me just grateful for our board and that we work well together. And also WSBA provides a lot of great services and we've been using them with our policies and they've been doing a great job staying busy with the legislative session, but I also, again, would encourage everyone to keep reaching out to their legislators. Just a reminder to the board, their public officer training for new board members. I mean, you have till the end of December, but there's some coming up in March. It's in your emails. And then just an update on the superintendent search. We are working on that. There will be opportunities for the community and staff to be involved and to give us some opinions. So as we make our timeline, we will have that published and encourage everyone to come be involved and see who our candidates are and help us with that. Craig.
Oh, okay, thanks. While those guys were, while we were watching that movie, I checked on some statistics because we have a lot of involvement. If you went to the basketball game with Rock Springs last week, that gym was overpacked. Nothing in communities in Wyoming draw people together than our activities. And I understand, I watch the legislatures, they beat up on the schools, which seems to be an ongoing thing, but there is nothing that draws our crowds. So I did take a look. At this point right now, we have 104% participation in activities, and we're missing some of those. That means we have kids doing multiple things, but we have more kids participating than we have students at the high school. The middle school, they don't offer as many things. They offer some after-school programs that we don't count. They're at 78% participation so far. So we offer a lot of things for our kids, but I will say, I think sometimes they forget in Cheyenne what draws people in communities together. It's our activities, our sporting events, our plays, and they sometimes lose sight of that. And it's a lot of work. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to go into executive session?
I'll motion to go into executive session for issues of discipline.
I'll second.
Moved by Tom, second by Tate. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, I made the motion.
Yeah.
Dan
Second.
seconded. Sorry. Okay, and then I will make a motion. Where is it written at? Okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the stipulated agreement 2024/2025 -001, 2024/2025 -002, 2024/2025 -003, and 2024/2025 -004.
And I'll second those.
Second by Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And that is the end of our meeting. We'll adjourn.